Today's video is all about the 4-4-2. Has it seen its glory days or is it making a comeback? Stick around to find out in today's episode of Formation Principles. The simplicity of the 4-4-2 is what makes it one of the most effective formations to play, and can be extremely lethal going forward, but even harder to break down. It was synonymous with English football for all the 1990s and early 2000s. That was until this man came along. But the 4-4-2 dates back even further than that, with teams in the 1980s such as Arrigo Sacchi's AC Milan achieving a lot of success when playing with this formation. While other formations come and go, the 4-4-2 seems to be eternal. And in the modern game, a lot of big clubs are still using it to great success. In Ligue 1, Lille have been fantastic and find themselves 1 point clear of PSG, and potentially could be champions for the first time in 10 years. So far, they've played the 4-4-2 27 times this season, losing only 3 games and having the best defensive record in the league. In Portugal, Porto are second only to an unbeaten Sporting Lisbon, and have amassed the best offensive record in the league. While playing in a 4-4-2, Porto are yet to lose a single match this season, and could be only 4 points from the top if they win their game in hand. In the Serie A, while Juventus looks set to lose the Scudetto to Antonio Conte's Inter Milan, it's not been all that bad for Andrea Pirlo in his first year in charge, and Juventus currently have the joint best defensive record and the second best goal difference in the league. Finally, while Atletico Madrid have slowly shifted into a back 3 formation, Diego Simeone is well known as one of the best managers with his 4-4-2, and is still a key part of his tactics. So far this season, Simeone has played the 4-4-2 7 times, and is yet to lose a match when using this lineup. So the 4-4-2 is not as popular as it used to be 15 to 20 years ago, but it definitely still has a place as one of the hardest formations to break down. Now, like all other formations in the modern game, the 4-4-2 does require a specific set of players to ensure it's as effective as possible, both offensively and defensively. Let's take some of the players from these teams we just analysed to understand the main roles in the 4-4-2. Jan Oblak is arguably one of the best goalkeepers in the world. The 4-4-2 isn't as reliant on build-up as other formations, and can rely on long balls to the strikers to bypass the press. And Oblak has proven to be fantastic at long ball precision and finding players in space. Next up, the centre-back partnership of Fonte and Botman has been excellent, helping Lille achieve the best defensive record in the league. With the most clears and blocks in the team, they are excellent at stopping any central play, and have been excellent at circulating possession and moving the ball up the pitch. The 2 fullbacks from Juventus in Cuadrado and Danilo have also been excellent, with Cuadrado being one of the surprises of the season in his effectiveness in a more defensive role. They've averaged some of the highest defensive actions per 90, and have also been excellent at supporting the attack and providing width. Porto's midfield partnership of Uribe and Sergio Oliveira have also been outstanding this season, and really highlight the importance of the 2 midfielders in the 4-4-2. Oliveira is the club's top scorer, excellent at supporting the attack with late runs and able to pick out excellent balls over the back 4, and can rely on the more defensive Uribe to provide cover or to overload in certain areas of the pitch. The 2 wingers from Juventus in Federico Chiesa and Dejan Kulusevski have also been fantastic. Chiesa has been excellent at supporting the attack and defense throughout the match, and has 7 goals and 7 assists to his name, while Kulusevski has 4 goals and 1 assist. Both are extremely technical players and excel in 1v1 situations, which is perfect and essential for the wingers to be able to do in a 4-4-2. Finally, Atletico Madrid's 2 forwards of Suarez and Felix have developed an excellent chemistry. As a front 2, Suarez has been excellent at pinning the defenders back and latching onto any loose balls, while Felix will attack the spaces between the lines or get in behind for the flick-on. So, like all other formations, the 4-4-2 does require a specific set of players to ensure it's as effective as possible going forward. Now, let's see how these players can interact between themselves on the pitch in the main attacking dynamics of the 4-4-2. First things first, the main advantage of having 2 strikers is that the team needn't waste time in moving the ball through the lines, and the goalkeeper can immediately go long. When playing against the back 4, the 2 centre-backs will be occupied with the strikers, which frees up space in behind for the wingers to move into, or for one of the centre-mids to support the attack, and can often immediately outnumber the opposition in a 5v4 situation. With one striker also pushing up, it creates space between the defence and midfield lines for the other striker to collect a knockdown and for the team to start their attack already in the opposition's final third. However, if this long ball is not available, then the 4-4-2 can be great for teams wishing to build up play from the back line. What happens here is entirely dependent on how the opposition chooses to press. If playing against a 4-3-3, then the back four will have a man advantage over the three opposing forwards, and can shift the ball between them while slowly gaining ground. The main thing to note when playing against a 4-3-3 is that the 4-4-2 may look to avoid the centre, given that the opposition will outnumber the two midfielders. This is where having two traditional wingers can make it easier to move the ball up the pitch, and will often find pockets of space on the flanks. It's something we see pretty consistently with Juventus. The team will shift the ball out wide to the wingers, and now the opposition's three midfielders are forced to shift out wide to cover the flank. And by doing this, a switch of play to the winger on the other flank can be extremely effective, given that with the fullback overlapping on the flank, they can now find themselves in a 3v2 advantage. Now this works against a 4-3-3, but what about a team playing with two strikers? Well, let's say they're playing against a 3-5-2, a very common formation in the current meta. If the opposition just presses with the front two, then this doesn't work, given that the fullbacks will immediately have space on the flanks to move into. And so the opposition will immediately try and cover these gaps by having the fullbacks push up nearly in line with the strikers. But by doing this, now the midfield will be outnumbered in a 4v3 situation. Or another method to create space further up the pitch could see one of the midfielders coming deep between the centre backs and dragging one of the opposing centre mids out of position. By doing this, it allows the fullbacks to push up and the two wingers to come into the middle of the pitch, transforming the 4-4-2 into more of a 3-5-2 formation. And with the wingers moving inside, this now flips the numerical advantage in the midfield, also allowing them to attack the space between the lines and get the ball into the forwards. Now this is something that for me is often overlooked in the 4-4-2. It's widely regarded as an unflexible and rigid formation. However, it is far from that, and can swiftly morph into any other common formation in the modern game. One winger joins the attack, and now it's a 4-3-3. The CDM drops between the fullbacks to push up, and now it's a 3-5-2. With a team mastering the 4-4-2, they can learn the basics of any other popular formation that counters how the opposition is playing. Now let's see how the formation develops further up the pitch. Further up the pitch, the 4-4-2 has plenty of options available to exploit. Having wide midfielders along with the fullbacks allows the team to create substantial width on the attack. It's important for the wingers and fullbacks to have a good understanding. For example, if the winger stays out wide, then the fullback could move into the half space, or even be used as support closer to the holding midfielder. Or if the fullback overlaps on the flank, then this will mean the winger can move into the box alongside the strikers and add more numbers on the attack, potentially aiming to get on the end of any crosses. Having two wide midfielders also means that usually one of the fullbacks will be required to support the attack, while the other can sit back and support the defense to stop any potential counterattacks. With the ball on one flank, the other winger can choose to stay wide and stretch the back line, potentially aiming to help the team switch play and be in a 1v1 situation, or can attack the box as a front three. The role of the two midfielders is also crucial when entering the final third. It's important for them to play on staggered lines, and while one will be used as more of a box-to-box midfielder, the other will usually play in a more defensive role, acting as either a backwards pass or an option to move the ball out of tight spaces. Having four wide players also ensures that the midfielders are not required to shift out wide to create overloads, and will operate nearly entirely in central areas, at most attacking the half spaces. The box-to-box midfielder can also exploit the space made available by the wingers. For example, if the wingers stay wide, then this stretches the opposition's back line, meaning that the midfielder can move into the box and create a numerical advantage. He could choose to get on the end of any through balls and cut the ball back to the strikers, or sit on the edge of the box to get on the end of any knockdowns from the strikers. When on the full attack, the 4-4-2 will often resemble a 3-3-4, with one winger moving in alongside the strikers and the other out wide, the fullbacks alongside the box-to-box midfielder, and the holding mid with the two centre-backs. So if played effectively, the 4-4-2 can be as dangerous as any other formation going forward. But where this formation really got its name was in its defensive stability. Two banks of four has been the most common way of defending for the past few decades, and any team will see themselves shift into this formation multiple times a game. Now let's see why it's so difficult to break down. To start, the 4-4-2 can be viable with an offensive press, but it does require the team to move as a unit to ensure there are no gaps. The two strikers can immediately close down the two centre-backs and push play out wide where the wide midfielders can close down the fullbacks. By doing this, however, just like when attacking, the midfielders could find themselves outnumbered in a 3v2 in midfield. To counter this, the winger on the side without the ball can move inside to stop the team from any central progression. This will often lead the opposition to attempting a lot of switches in play against the 4-4-2, trying to disorganise the midfield line. But if executed correctly, the 4-4-2 is still very difficult to break down. Having said that, the 4-4-2 is more effective when not pressing as high up the pitch, with the strikers dropping off the back line and closer to the midfield four. We can see how this completely outnumbers the opposition's midfield and creates a fantastic amount of central cover, forcing play out wide, where the winger and the fullback can shift together to stop any movement. So as you can see, when first set up, the 4-4-2 has a lot of central players, with 3 in each of the 2 central lanes and 2 in the half spaces. With the team shifting as a unit with the ball moving to either flank, it creates a lot of cover all over the pitch. Notice how the 2 wingers will also need to be on staggered lines compared to the strikers and the central mids. This may seem like a small change, but if the wingers were flat with the midfielders, then there would be a lot of central space in front of the midfield line, which could be occupied by an opposing midfielder and potentially disrupting the central block. Now, one main reason as to why the 4-4-2 is regarded as one of the most effective and simple formations to play is because the defensive block can work anywhere on the pitch. This 6-man central block can be adapted even in the defensive third. As the opposition pushes up, then the 2 strikers can help close the middle, and the midfield 4 will shuffle side to side and shield the back 4, who against the 4-3-3 can outnumber the 3 forwards. When the opposition start committing even more players to the attack, the fullbacks can add central support and the wingers can drop alongside the fullbacks, well and truly parking the bus in a 6-2-2 or 6-3-1 formation. Finally, the 4-4-2 is excellent on counterattacks, given that even when defending with a lot of players, at least one striker can always be used as an outlet high up the pitch, and can be supported by the wingers, joining the attack and catching the opposition off guard. Like all other formations, if not played correctly, the 4-4-2 is vulnerable to some specific styles of play. Let's take a look. The main weakness behind the 4-4-2, which is something we covered earlier, is having only 2 central players. We've seen how the team can actually use this to their advantage, but against a well-organised formation, a midfield 3 will always be able to have the upper hand in the centre, which will make it harder and harder for the 4-4-2 to be used effectively. It's one of the main reasons as to why Jose Mourinho's 4-3-3 was so effective when he first came to the Premier League, because the 4-4-2 was not equipped to deal with the extra midfielder. Another issue with the 4-4-2 is in the amount of teamwork and coordinated movement that is required. The midfield must shuffle constantly and stop the opposition from progressing, and even on the ball, adding numbers to the attack can be strenuous on the wingers and the fullbacks, meaning this formation can tire easily and may struggle in the last few minutes of the game. Predictability and rigidity are the 2 most common problems associated to the 4-4-2, as is the amount of pressure placed on the central midfielders to attack and defend consistently throughout the match. Nonetheless, the 4-4-2 is not going anywhere, and will be an important formation for any top team to master. And now let me know what you think of the 4-4-2. Do you think it's still one of the most viable formations out there, or do you think there are other formations that are better? Let me know in the comments down below, along with any suggestions for future videos. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.